morning, sunshine. That's right. You've got enough to spray it, baby. You would look cute. Good idea.
Good. I'm a shoe guy.
Me too.
Yeah. Someone got guys in shoes. So it's right.
Coffee on top of my. Didn't drive off with it on.
Friday. Is Denise with us? Oh, okay. Should we give her a minute? Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Jess.
There's the big kicker. There's Denise. All right. How we looking? We're ready to go? Okay. All right. So I'll give me the thumbs up. Well, good morning.
Morning.
Welcome, CTA. I think today is your opportunity to present a counter. I just wanted to welcome you. I also want to point out for the record, our last session on Tuesday, Denise had asked us to root for the Red Sox. We did that. The Red Sox won. So, anyway, we'll yield the floor to CTA. Welcome.
All right, well, good morning, everybody. First of all, I'd like to say congratulations, sir.
Oh, thank you.
That was a great move by the district, we believe, and we definitely fully support that, and look forward to continuing to work with you.
Appreciate that, and I look forward to sticking around for a while.
All right, all right. Okay, so what we're going to do, what we did was we went through, your proposal. We understood that you had some asks, and we tried to leave those asks alone. You'll see very few red marks in here, and the red marks would indicate where we were changing something that you had in your document. You see there's very little of that. What we did do, though, in green was to add the things in terms of what our asks are in this, in return for the things that we did not, take out. Okay, so we start with number one, general expectations. And instead of doing the homework for quarantine students via Google Classroom daily, we just put as needed. All right? So, which is a little different in that if there is no need, then we wouldn't do it. Wherein daily says that it'd be done all the time.
Okay, understand that.
That's where we were. That was our interest there. And then in D, we're basically talking about, and we use language basically from our previous MOU about recordings being used, as supporting documentation and investigations. And then we talked about altering of the recorded items, that kind of thing, with students. Again, that came from the previous MOU.
Yes.
All right?
Yeah, you had mentioned that you were going to bring some out language forward, and it looks good to me.
So, yeah, so it's nothing, way out. It's just, trying to restating those things. And then E, this is something we feel that if we're going to do Google Classroom and put things up in the mornings, we need the mornings to do that. And so we're saying that body unit members shall not be required to perform breakfast period supervision duties during the first 15 minutes of the duty day to ensure that they're able to, carry out the new creations of the MOU. And this primarily middle school and elementary school. If they have to, post work each day, when are they going to do it? If they're, doing the breakfast period supervision. That's our look at it. And I guess there's another piece to this, and we'll get more into it later, in more detail. But if they're being asked to do more work, particularly with the time available during the day, I mean, they're getting their planning period, they're getting their duty-free lunch, and then in elementary, they're getting their relief time. Outside of that, any other time, you know, it seems like it's being consumed with duties or some kind of responsibility. And if they're getting these additional duties, when is that to be done? And then especially when they sub during their planning period, when it is extra work, you know, is to be done. So that's basically a concept that we have, and what we're asking for. Those are the things in the back of our mind in terms of what we're concerned about. Okay, then in F, we removed to the extent possible, because that seemed like if it wasn't possible that there could be a forced tutorial, and we can't do that, where we force teachers to tutor. And then we took out who are ill, because we're talking about quarantined students. And if they're ill, they're quarantined. So it's kind of like saying the same thing twice. And it could be misunderstood by being in there. Excuse me. And then, of course, in green, we make sure that it's voluntary. Questions so far?
No questions. I guess what I would say is, I think we're good with everything, but at this point, like paragraph E. I'm
Paragraph, which one? E?
concerned about E.
Okay, we can go back and talk to that.
Well, I mean, I think I understand your position, but, you know, I've talked to different principals who run their campuses, you know, in different ways. But some currently, you know, there are schools where the workday, when it starts at 7:30, teachers may have assignments, you know, that help with supervision or what have you on the campus. So I would be concerned about disrupting how schools are run. And then just from you know, the 15 minutes per day, when we have say we have 12,500 teachers, 15 minutes per day for 180 days, that's about $25 million worth of salary and benefits. So I just have to be careful with that. But as far as providing feedback as we go along, I just wanted to be upfront. I can you know, caucus with our team and dig into this a little bit more. But at first glance, I'm trying to just let you know the things that I think we can quickly kind of sign off on, and the ones that are more challenging from the district side.
Okay. And when I ask for questions, I'm basically saying that, you know, am I clear in what we're communicating? That's all. You know, we can go back and, you know.
Yes, no, you were perfectly clear. I guess the way I understood it was you're saying, look, if we're going to ask you to use the Google Classroom and to turn in your camera as needed, you're saying, okay, then we need this 15 minutes free each morning to potentially handle those additional duties. I guess we were a little more optimistic that the impact on time wouldn't be as significant. That, you know, that as it plays out, when the teacher needs to record a lesson, that they could hopefully, you know, use that Google Meet, hit the record button, and not have a whole lot of disruption to their day. But anyway, I'm just trying to highlight where I feel like we're not on the same page. And
Okay. Well,
fortunately, on a lot of these things, I see your point, and we can accept it. But that's just one that we're going to probably struggle with.
All right, we'll keep the attitude as we go along.
Okay.
Okay, but I think on the Google Classroom recording, the work involved may not be fully understood, because it's not just pushing a button to do that. There's additional work involved in that, and we just want to make sure they have time to do that. And then G is just a reminder about the PD issue that carried over from the last year's MOU. And we don't have any place in any documents where that planning time, that comp time could be used in any documents that are present and current. So we just feel that this is a place we can put it to remind them that that time is still to be used where they did lunch and breakfast last school term in the last MOU. All right, and in H, again, for the additional time. We're just asking that all T-bargaining unit members will receive a $2,500 bonus. It was $35 last time. We did, drop that down to $2,500. And then additionally, the COVID bonus for those teachers, the bargaining unit members, including pre-K, who were excluded from the governor's disaster relief payment. We just feel that the last year, when we weren't sure about funds, when teachers were asked to do the recording, the Google Classroom, the Google Meet, simultaneous teaching, losing, time, that, we didn't complain. They just went ahead and sucked it up and did it. And this time we feel that with the, relief funding from the ESSER, dollars from the federal government, there's opportunity to try and compensate our teachers for the additional work. Because what we're asking them to do is to do more work and just say do more work, and that's it. No comp time, no money, we're saying we believe that the teachers, should be compensated for the additional work. And not only that, but the attitude in which they did it, and they were concerned about our children, concerned about their safety. They went in schools at risk. We had a tough time trying to get the remote teaching in place, and yet they came anyway, at risk. And so we just feel that this whole, 2 years or so of effort, should, bring something to the teachers in terms of compensation. I think it would be a poor act on our part if we, missed that opportunity to help them. And then the next one, that was H. And then in tutorial rate, we just believe that should be retroactive. It's not that far back. It's pretty easy to calculate. We just feel that should be retroactive, because it's going to be kind of hard for people to feel that they've done this for this amount, and now now other people are doing it, and now they're going to do it for this amount. And we just feel that it should just be consistent, all year long, And the same thing applies down in 3 for substitute coverage. The additional thing that we added in, though, is in 3A, it starts in the green, of course, the retroactive, and then an elementary school substitute coverage assignment is less than a full day, because if it's less than a full day but more than a half day, compensation shall be prorated based on 15-minute increments. And if sub coverage assignment is less than a half day, compensation shall be prorated based on 15. Basically, what we're saying is, when teachers are asked to cover, for example, doing for someone doing the 25-minute or 30-minute relief time, they're told there's no compensation. There's no way to pay that. That's not a part of it. They said it's not a half day, it's not a full day, so we can't. And so we want to make sure that when they're doing this, that there's compensation for it. And how we're doing it, you may know better than we do, but we just kind of need to present it to you in a way in which we can understand it, so teachers could be compensated during that time.
I need to check into that and see what our capacity is to process it. Okay.
And the reason this has come up, this aspect of this part of the contract, is that just this past week or so, we had an issue where some teachers at elementary covered for like an hour and a half, which isn't a half day, and they were told there is no compensation because it's a half day or a full day. That's not possible at the secondary level because people cover on a period-by-period basis, so it's already prorated based on periods. Elementary, it's half or full, and we just want to make sure that whether it's less than a half, you get your prorated, or between a half and a full, you get your prorated, because we're operating under the assumption if I covered for a half hour more than a half day, it probably wouldn't round up to a full day in the district's view. So we don't want it to round down to a half day, so the increments would allow it to be precise.
Okay, we can look into that.
Okay. And then 3B, just a reminder about the sub process, acquisition of a substitute teacher.
Okay.
And And then, finally, the duration. We're still dealing with that. So we've, again, you'll see that we reached to try and meet you, halfway in this. So what we're saying is the June 30 is fine, but when we revisit the MOU, not only for the county public health officials or the Center for Disease Control, Department of Ed, but also if we have concerns, we revisit those, And so it's not canceling anything, but it is saying that we will sit down and revisit. And we just trust that if we had a legitimate concern, that you would hear us.
Well, I appreciate your movement. And
All right, and I guess what's really important about our proposal today is that we listened to what you felt you needed in this, and so, as I said, we tried to not change any of your requests, but we felt that, given the things that we included, we could agree to those things without challenge.
Well, no, I appreciate that, and that's apparent. There's some items that have been added on your side, and I understand them. I think our team will need to take a brief caucus, and I want to just have a chance to have a quick conversation, make sure I understand everything, and then come back to the table quickly and provide, kind of report back where we think we can reach agreement and maybe point out some of our challenges or concerns.
You want
All right.
to hear, or you want
We
to?
can let you guys keep the room if you like,
Okay.
and
Can I,
we'll just
before
go
you
find a place
leave-
to go huddle.
Before you leave, I just want to bring up one thing on this. When we're talking about the retroactive, I have had paychecks from teachers recently, and it is earmarked specifically as a line item. So like when they when they tutor or when they're covering for a class, it is a specific line item. So that's the reason why we feel it would be, it's not like you have to create it, it's already there in
On the
people's
retro
stuff.
side of things.
Yeah,
Yeah, I am going to put a quick call in the payroll too as part of this caucus to make sure I understand their capacity.
okay.
All right.
All right, well then we'll take a quick break, and I'll text you and let you know when we're ready to come back, make sure we don't interrupt you all. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We wanted to clarify, because the way we're reading it is daily, our expectation is daily. We're saying it as needed, but that can't be 3 days later. Okay. It is time sensitive to the daily instruction and continuity. Each day they're quarantined, okay. I scribbled down every day a student is quarantined as potential language. That's the intent. I'm not married to the language itself, just the clarification that it is got to be daily, not 3 days later. Okay. Okay. All right, we're back. Okay, I guess I'd like to just kind of respond verbally. We didn't have time to type up a counter, but I think we could walk through and talk about the language, and I'll try to make it clear what our position is. On 1A, this, I believe we're on the same page. This would just be an attempt to clarify, but where it currently states, provide content, classwork, and homework to quarantine students as needed. We would like just to make sure it's clear that that's on a daily basis. When the kids are quarantined on a given day, we would offer and substitute to say, all applicable bargaining unit members will be expected to provide content, classwork, and homework every day a student is quarantined. So that's...
Same thing.
But I
Okay.
think, okay, we were just concerned as needed. Somebody might think, well, maybe I could get them, give them a week's worth or something at the end of the week. Okay. On 1D, we support your language as far as the video recordings are not to be used for an investigation or any supporting documentation. Our ask here is just for the benefit of the students to augment their at-home instruction. So we can agree to your language there. On 1E, we would strike 1E. We don't feel, first, this breakfast period supervision duties is almost like a new term that's not in the current contract. And I think it's problematic for us. I think it would be disruptive to the way schools currently operate. So we'd like to forego that. On 1F, we support your language. We're going to move off of to the extent possible, and we'll make that a voluntary assignment, and we'll just work through that. So we have agreement there on 1F.
All right, the students who are ill, we had already agreed to remove those, but there was one still left in there. And so that's what that one is in red.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I thought the last time we met, we were still hanging on to the extent possible, and then.
Right, right, but the who are ill is what I'm speaking about.
Oh, the who are ill, yeah, that
Right.
part, definitely. Denise clarified that for me last time, so we're good there. On 1G, again, 1G, this was in the prior MOU,
Correct,
and the prior MOU did state that it can maybe used through 21-22.
correct.
So we will honor the prior MOU. We don't see a need to restate it in this MOU. I went back and looked at the language from the prior one, and it's there. So our reply, our response would be, let's leave this out, but we will, the other MOU is still in effect.
Can I address that?
Yes,
The
ma'am.
reason why we're putting it in again is because there is confusion at the schools, and we've dealt with a number of schools that don't understand, including some of the teachers, but they don't understand that that language is still there and that it applies. That's why we wanted to just put it back in so that when somebody says to Denise, can you give me the language and where it's at? I can't find it, then we can say, oh, it's in the new MOU. Here it is. And it just explains the process. That's the reason why we were asking to have it in there.
Okay. Mr. Tierney's told me that we have shared this language with our principals. We presented it to them, and we can do that again.
Okay,
Try to avoid any confusion.
all right.
Okay, on 1H, the component about the $2,500 bonus for all bargaining units
Thank you.
members,
I'm sorry.
no, I'm sorry, not so fast, right? That's, I will not argue that the teachers are not fully deserving of any money we can provide them, but we feel like this is a substantial amount of compensation. It's roughly about $31 million. And we will be negotiating the contract this year, including salaries. And at this point, we're not prepared to be able to meet this request. And I'm not sure ultimately where we will end up, but I would like to keep the salaries, and I would consider that part of the larger salary and compensation conversation that will occur when we get into bargaining the contract and beyond this MOU today. The other language you have on the $1,000 COVID bonus for basically all your members that were left out of the governor's plan that was implemented this summer, we're in full agreement on. Okay, on the tutorial rate, and I did check back with Ms. Frederick and our payroll team, we are able, on the tutorial rate, the way we break that out and put it into employees' paychecks, we are able to go back and retroactively increase it. So we can agree to that. Now, when I get to the substitute coverage, that's not the same scenario. On the substitute coverage, we would strike the language about retroactive to the start of this current academic year. Your language as far as prorating, we're good with that. it was our intent, at the start of that paragraph, it says the employee shall be paid $25 per period. And we see an elementary day as 5 periods or $125. So if we have these splits that don't fall into a perfect or full day, we will round to the nearest 15 minutes or quarter hour. This is a kind of a paper process at our school sites. So hopefully all of our payroll contacts and principals will have their calculators handy and get this. It may create a little extra calculation there, but hopefully we can handle that. So we're good with the 15 minutes. On 2B, that's the language about the principal is responsible for finding the substitute. We don't disagree with that, but we feel like this language is already addressed in the regular contract. So it's part of our theme here. We don't want to put more language that's already addressed in the contract. So we would strike 3B.
Mike?
Yes, sir.
If that's, if we're okay with that not being there because it's in the contract as is, would the district be willing to make crystal clear to school-based administrators that you are not to make the teacher find the specific sub? Or I think where this came up that we had a bigger problem is that teachers are being told if you're going to be out, you need to go to your cohort, like your third grade. You need to go to the other third grade teachers and provide them this and split the kids up. So like they were being told to like do that work, and there was a level of discomfort with me going to an equal and saying tomorrow you're going to watch these 12 kids and here's the work, because I have no authority to do that, and the contract seems to say that's not envisioned. So we would just request that the principals or APs be reminded that these teachers, it is not their task to procure coverage or subs or ask their coworkers.
Yes, we can do that. And Mr. Tierney and I were just kind of checking there. That's fair. We'll send out a reminder. Let's see. And then we're coming down the home stretch. The only other thing that was on the table was the duration, and we appreciate your movement there and the language you've provided as far as if we need to, if either party, something hits us unexpectedly and we need to get back to the table, we can do that. So that's, I feel like we're pretty close here. We've tried to make as much movement as we feel like we can through this MOU. I think some of these topics, may carry over to when we can open up the full contract. And if I realize we did not have time to type up a full written proposal, but if we could reach, agreement here today, I'd be happy to sit with Mr. Harris, and maybe if we started, I kind of made a mess of my document, but if we get a clean one, I think we could probably maybe go through and, even if it's by hand, make some of these edits, because they're not real significant. It's either agreeing to them, or maybe if you would agree to our omissions, then we could strike through accordingly. But anyway, that's our proposal.
Okay, right. Well, we'll need a few minutes to caucus on that. But in the meantime, Gordon, you had something you wanted to share? We're not hearing you, Gordon. Okay, yeah, we're not hearing you.
I'm surprised we can't hear Mr. Longhofer with his powerful voice. He
telling
could
you.
probably just step outside the building and.
I said he
We'll
wanted
check
to.
with our IT folks here to see if we can help at all, try to get that voice.
The last time we were here, we were hearing the bell rings and announcements
Yeah,
and
I
everything.
know. I could hear everything the last time.
Yeah.
Mr. Longhofer, sometimes I've found that you may help to log out and log back in. We're not seeing the obvious issue on our end of things, but Google Meet sometimes has its quirks.
So that requires extra time in order to fix it.
If we have to, we can use our phones to save
Walked
time.
right into that one. I don't know, any luck there?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yes.
Hooray! No, there was, I think there was, in part of the discussion, and it's probably in support of the remarks about justifying compensation. The time that teachers will spend to do some of the work with quarantine, admittedly, it's going to be less than when we did full simultaneous teaching, because it's going to vary based upon the students or classroom that actually has a quarantined student. But just to give some perspective to that, the assignment, of course, has to be posted first, which can vary anywhere from a minute or two up to a much more significant period of time if components of the lesson have to be digitized from another version, say a textbook or some other supplemental material. And again, depending upon how it's digitized, it might go more quickly or might take some time, but it will have some time factors in there. There would be starting and stopping of the video, which is virtually minimal. Just start it, then go off and teach, let it record, stop it. Once the video is done, it has to be processed, which there's a delay. That's not really teacher time. But then when we come back, there would be the time to post that video to each section that is necessary. Now, for some teachers, that may vary from just a few sections because they have one preparation to multiple sections. And in some cases, if you're talking about elementary school teachers with a self-contained classroom, they're doing much longer videos more frequently, posting them back to the same place because they're teaching all of the subjects. Also, the occasional secondary ESE teacher that's responsible for all subjects. Reviewing student work is probably comparable, except it will take a little more time when you navigate the digital environment to add those comments. Posting of grades is the same. All in all, it does stretch a teacher's day out a little bit more to make sure that they get that done and do it effectively with fidelity for those students who happen to be quarantined. It is in essence simultaneous teaching without the interaction with the students online, but all of the other pieces are there just on the limited basis for those students who require it due to quarantine status. That was one of the things that we had discussed to try to have me get in, and since couldn't be heard earlier, that's kind of understandable we didn't get there. Mr. Burke, Mr. Harris.
Thank you for the explanation there and giving us the real-life walkthrough of how that impacts the teacher. I appreciate it.
Okay, yeah, we can caucus.
Okay, how would you guys like to do it?
Yeah, we can probably just step out.
The room next door was open last time for us. I believe it still is, if you prefer.
All right, yeah, we can do that.
Okay. Thank you. All right, thank you.
Okay, Gordon, you can hit your mic off.
Yep.
Say, Gordon, your mic is on?
I believe it is, if you can hear me.
No, I was letting you know you need to turn it off just, until you get ready.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
In case those bells go off, yeah.
welcome back.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we've had a chance to caucus, and we still have, I guess, three areas of concern.
Okay.
All right. And one is something that we find that's very important to our teachers, and that is that 1E, which is those first 15 minutes of the day. We hear you in terms of what the needs are. We just don't feel that it should be something assigned to every teacher every day. You know, I don't know if there's a better way to address that, but to have everybody having to do breakfast duty those 15 minutes every day, because usually duties are they're different each day for different people. You know, they're kind of shared.
We're not asking for that, are we? I mean, this was your language.
Right. What we don't want to do is to have them perform the breakfast time duty. We want them to be free to get ready for school in the morning. You know, that's what we're asking for, time for them to get ready for school. And I'm saying that if everybody didn't have to do it at one time, then, you know, maybe that'll be a better way of trying to work that, as opposed to having it where every teacher every day is covering these 15 minutes.
And I guess a question, I don't know if you have insight into it from your conversations with mostly elementary, it happens at middle school too, but I don't believe every school is doing it. So there are schools, elementary schools, for example, where there are principals not requiring this. So if they're able to do this in a way that doesn't adversely impact the morning prep time, you know, I don't know if you know, like, what are those schools doing that they're able to safely accomplish opening of their campuses, where these other schools have relied on telling teachers every day, you know, you have to open your door at 7:30, 7:45 and let the kids in and supervise them. Because it's not every school, I don't believe. I don't know if there's an answer.
I think it is probably a mixed bag from what I've heard, or it may be subsets of the teachers, like maybe depending on what, maybe the PE teacher's doing something that maybe the homeroom teacher's not. I don't know, but there's probably multiple variations of how. But I would think there's some give and take that with that our principals is customarily, you know, if they're going to be successful, they have to work well with their teachers and their faculty, and they have to be reasonable, and they have to make accommodations where they can. I haven't heard it be a big issue from their vantage point, you know, granted, but I don't know. I feel like we're trying to create something new here through the MOU. Like we said, we haven't really, all right. Well, I understand your position.
All right. And in light of that, even, you know, if that did exist, we have the challenge of asking our teachers a second year to do additional work without compensation. When we presented our last proposal, we included, you know, salary as a part of that. You explained to us that you didn't want to move forward with this MOU with salary being included. And as you noticed, we did not include salary in the proposal we brought back to you. Because I guess one major issue is in this MOU, we're talking about one-time, you know, kind of expenses as it relates to the $2,500 bonus. And it's one-time money that you get that you'll be able to even spend on something like that. And so it's not recurring, so we do understand that. And so we did bifurcate by taking, you know, leaving salary out of this. But we're being asked to have our teachers do this additional work, an additional year, without any kind of compensation. And
Well, we've tried to layer in compensation where we could, whether it be the tutorial rate increase, the sub coverage, or the $1,000 for the teachers who were left out. And this piece, the challenge about when a student's quarantined, unfortunately the numbers are coming down. It's hard for us to measure that and tie compensation to it. There is, I guess we were hopeful that the teachers, there may be a little, as Mr. Longhofer explained, there is some work involved, right, to make that possible. But the potential benefits are there for both the student and the teacher, and hopefully that means that student comes back to school after their period of being directed to stay home, better prepared and requiring the teacher maybe less work on the back end to try to catch students up. So we felt there's benefits there for all. You know, if it's not something we're able to get to, then we'll have to get by with what's in place.
Well, I guess Gordon, can you turn off your mic?
Well, I just had a thought about something. I'm not sure that the catching them up afterwards is really any different than trying to work with them virtually. I think the time commitment is probably the same. So I'm not sure that that is actually an equitable argument, at least from my view as a classroom teacher. I would tend to think extra work, regardless of how it occurs, is there. And that's just my view when we're trying to determine whether it would be easier when they come back. It might be easier when they come back, but it's not easier as they're gone. And if there were no other things to do while they were gone, then that would be easier. So on balance, it's probably a wash. More work is still more work, whether done now or done later.
Okay, well, again, it's hard for us to come to agreement without some kind of compensation for our teachers. That's basically, what we're saying on this side, because of what they've done in the past and what they're doing right now. And asking them to do additional work and then not give them any kind of compensation is just, is a tough pill to swallow. We, again, we understand about, salary not being a part of this because of, recurring, funding and that issue. But on this piece, we see that there needs to be some kind of compensation for our teachers for doing this extra work. And I heard you when you spoke about the additional monies that have put in for tutorial and sub, but that's not direct pay to teachers. They got to do something extra again to get that. So they're working for anything for the dollars you're talking about you're putting in. They're working for those, and so what we're saying is we want some kind of compensation for the extra work that they're going to be putting in. That they're already putting in and have put in, the previous year as well. It's just tough. And then the last thing is we just feel that the sub-coverage, retro issue is one that we feel that, also those teachers should be made whole as well. To have them, work part of the year and get one salary and another part of the year and get another, we just feel that, full compensation for them is something that should be done. I'm sorry.
Okay, I understand. We'll take another look at the complications with that. But there is also some point to making things effective once we get agreement. I mean, if everything's always retroactive, these conversations could go on for the year and there's really no skin in the game to get to a quick resolution. So, all right, well, I think then doesn't look like we're going to be able to get to an agreement today because we've put everything in terms of additional compensation on the table. So that's okay. I guess we're going to have to regroup and either.
All the other items, we're good to go on. It's just that it's just hard for us to have these teachers who have done all this and do all this and then not get, not get compensation. That's just a tough thing for us to send back to them and say that this is where we are.
Well, I understand the rationale, and I don't question that teachers deserve additional compensation. The proposal would take about $31 million to provide that $2,500 bonus for everyone above the other things we've offered here. I feel like that conversation is better that when we sit down to talk about salaries in total, that I anticipated a bonus would be part of those conversations because of the nature of our funding. But I do not have the ability to do that now. And I just being very straightforward about it and having bargained for a few years, typically, once we agree to something, we move on from there, and the conversation kind of starts anew. And if the district was to commit to $31 million now, I don't know what we would draw upon in the subsequent conversations. And I know you're going to want to have more in-depth conversation. We're going to want to present our finances. We're going to want to talk about the challenges we're experiencing, what we see at the legislative level, our enrollment situation, the Florida Empowerment Scholarships and Hope Scholarships that are draining resources from our district each day. And we're not prepared as part of this MOU to put that type of money behind it. To $31 million to ensure that on an occasion when a student's quarantined that we can get cameras turned on, we're going to have to find a more cost-effective way to address it, just quite frankly.
Well, initially, with the 3,500, we were talking about 56 million. So we did understand, that there could be a challenge there. We also looked at it as ESSER dollars as a way in which it's done, because we don't expect for it to be paid out of general funds, because that would mean that you'd have to lessen the dollars for any other conversations. And this is an MOU, so within this MOU for this work, we just feel that these dollars should be tied in here and not into our regular salary negotiations if you would do that. And I guess part of our challenge is, we didn't get an offer back on the compensation. We just got a no on the compensation. And we feel that, you're asking for something, and I figure it has a cost to it, and we just feel that, there should be an offer of some kind. We haven't heard anything other than no.
Well, I think we've actually been collaborative. I
I'm talking
on a lot of the issues
bonus.
where we could find common ground. I appreciate the job that you have to do to represent your teachers. And again, I'm not questioning that that they merit a bonus pay for everyone for the hard years we've been through. And I think eventually we'll get there. I guess it's just, I don't see it in this forum, and I'm not prepared to do that today. I have to get further along in the budget and brief our school boards and make sure they understand their ability to pay. And we saw this MOU as a more limited scope. I understand your point. We're asking for an MOU and maybe tagging on an IOU to come later when we talk about salary. And it's apparent that's not something you're comfortable with. So anyway, I appreciate you making the time. I know the intent was to try to help us out and meet the needs of our kids in these challenging times that are hopefully going to get better soon. And there's certainly no hard feelings on our side of the table. But, unfortunately, we're just not going to probably get there today.
Right. And mind you, now, I do recognize, that we've done a great job in coming up with a document that's workable for both sides. And again, we just have that one little piece where we have a major concern. The others, I think we could, probably easily work through with a little time. But this one is a little tough one for us. And I'll kind of be frank. I don't like to, negotiate against myself, but there's possible costs for the bonus that would not be 31 million.
Yeah.
And that's the piece I'm talking about, not the overall.
I understand.
Okay.
And I appreciate that. I'll have to do a little work to see if we're able to counter in that regard, or if we need to just meet our instructional support requirements through other means that we may have to do that. The good news is the demand for this service is coming down. Hopefully that'll continue. And if we don't get there through the MOU, I hope we have, that we can extend kind of this harmonious conversation into the full contract bargaining, which will include salaries.
Well, and that will happen because we'll be involved, so we'll keep
Yes, sir.
it that way.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, and we'll reach back out.
Anything else, Justin?
No, thank you, guys. And I think, again, we're moving in the right direction. It's just different viewpoints. I think each of you wasn't in the position you were in last year when we had that, what I would call more brutal MOU. And so I understand how the current leadership is viewing this kind of from this moment in time, whereas the teachers are kind of their perspective is this is kind of a 2-year type, this is the conclusion of 2 years of work, hopefully conclusion.
Okay.
So we do understand your perspective because you guys did not negotiate last year's contract or push those conditions, but they did work them in their opinion. So, but we appreciate the back and forth and look forward to continuing trying to work through the remainder of the pandemic to move forward.
All right, thank you very much. All right, that's good.
I think we're almost there.
All right, we're going to keep the faith. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.